Oh, yeah.
Politics, more like politricks with your polipricks.
Oh, yeah.
Politics with your polipricks. Throw your hands up. Oh, yeah. Who this? Politics with your polipricks.
Let's begin.
Yeah. Welcome to Politics. It's
That's
so
right.
sad that Lou Perez, the voice of our new wonderful intro, which Brian Nichols has done us the courtesy of creating since they kept flagging our old one. Good job. I'm Brian McWilliams. Brian Nichols is here with us. Joan Odermatt is here. And yeah, Lou Perez, the artist formerly known as Lou Perez, now I think just fully goes by Politicks as his performing name.
I think it's Lucifer Perez is his stage name, right? His singing name.
And he does like Nas, like little Nas stuff on stage, wearing the devil horns and having his asshole out. Yeah, we're here. Welcome back, everybody. If you've been following along with our fantastic show here. Lot to talk about today, guys. As we were talking before the show, school is back in session, and I have been going through hell with my kids' idiotic schedules of half days, sitting in with the children for an hour and class with them to get them acclimated, going to school and eating breakfast with them, which none of these things existed when we were growing up. And I think they're to the detriment of the children population. But as weak and women and wussy as the generation of children might become, there is one child who has become an inspiration to the world. And she is a little Scottish lass who stood up for her sister with a hatchet and a knife. You gentlemen know what I'm talking about?
This story is wild.
So I didn't know the full story until last night. I read it and I can't find the tweet I was trying to find just now before the show. But someone who knows the family, and maybe this is widely known, I'm not sure, but I just saw it, that what had happened was it was this girl's older sister who these migrants were attacking. And then like the wife of one of the migrants grabbed the sister by the hair and was dragging her around. None of this was on video. So it was the little sister of this girl who was getting assaulted that stepped in and said, back up or I'm going to stab you or hit you or smack you in the face with a hatchet. And that's when they started recording.
Of course.
So, yeah. So it's just, there's so many different directions to take this. I mean, the one thing that jumps out is like, I think it was Angela McArdle that actually tweeted this out. Not this, she retweeted the story, then commented. But who are these, wives of these migrants who are helping them assault children? Like, What the hell is going on?
Yeah, and the fact that this isn't rare over there, right? Mm-hmm. Like this is just another story on another day. And unfortunately for a lot of the folks in Europe, this has become the standard. I have a lot of good friends who had come over to college when I was back in college. Then they played hockey and they went back to Norway, Sweden, Finland. And they will tell me flat out online, they're like, this isn't the country I grew up in. They will go down like, Stockholm, Sweden, and they will see it's like a majority of brown faces now, which this isn't a debate on, if that's good or bad, but the fact that you go from a pretty much just like one ethnicity, right? I mean, you think of those Norway, Sweden, Finland, Nordic countries, you think of blonde hair, blue-eyed folks, right? That's who they are. And it has changed so much in just one generation that they don't even feel like I hear folks saying like, I think I'm going to move back to the United States because it's so bad over here. I don't think we can save it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the debate, right? Is like, and well, to your point, yeah, there is something when you have mass migration. I was just listening to a podcast today was talk about this, the UK specifically over the course of like from, I was thinking it was like 2 or 3 years, imported 4.5 million people into a culture that's not that big and a homogenous culture for the most part. And granted, like you've had immigration in there, but not to this extent and not where it's taking over entire communities, which is what you see a lot. And it, like you're talking about Denmark, Sweden, all these places, there's a reason that these cultures are not compatible, right? Because people that are coming over through a slow system, through legal migration rather than a refugee status or a mass migration status where you're just opening the floodgates, these people want to become part of the culture. They are intent on learning the language, becoming acculturated. They want to live in Britain because it's Britain. They don't want to bring their country to Britain and then operate as a completely different sect within that society or overtake the society. And a lot of these are coming over, especially Muslim countries. Number one, have zero interest in becoming acculturated. Number two, want to make that country Muslim and they are Islamic, and they will say that flat out. I've seen it multiple times. And number three, they also have children at a birth rate that is 3 times that of the domestic population. So you're looking at 3 things that basically make it almost impossible, unless you're going to get into a conversation about remigration, which is what is happening now in the UK and other societies. Unless you're going to have remigration where you're deporting people like crazy, your society is not going to be able to sustain itself as it was. Your culture will be eroded, it will be erased, and it will be replaced. And unless you start breeding like crazy, which is almost impossible because you're in an economic situation where you're paying for all of these refugees and all of these migrants, you're now being bent over because the global economy has changed so much. You can't make the wage. You're being taxed to death. How are you going to afford 4 children and your house and your bills? There's just no way. It's an absolute assault on the sovereignty of these nations, and it erases what people liked about the cultures.
Yeah, and this right here, right? Like this goes to the absolute, just the horrible outcomes of the diversity is our strength mentality. And I think all of us here in the show today, we're all older millennials, right? So we grew up when this was the overarching narrative in academia, in society. I remember in college, you had this mentality just run rampant. No ideas are bad ideas. No cultures are bad cultures. And what ended up, and first you dig into that, right? And you say, okay, well, tell me about white culture. And they say, well, no, that not those folks.
Right, yeah.
But what happens when you have that mentality, right, is that it will, just in the whole spirit of a political pendulum swinging to the left and to the right, the cultural pendulum to the left, it's going to swing back to the right. And we're seeing that right now in the manifestation of folks like Nick Fuentes, right? Who he just got retweeted or quote tweeted by Scott Adams, the Dilbert guy, who was like saying, hey, you might not like him, you might not agree with him, but he's saying a thing that a lot of the younger voters that are predominantly white in America are either out loud saying now, or they are holding it back, but they're thinking it. And I think what we're going to see, guys, is that as that pendulum swings back, to your point, Bri, I mean, what's the alternative outcomes? And it's this reverse immigration almost, right? Like, no, instead of America first, it's America only. It's us only. And that's going to be the mentality that's going to carry through. And from an empathetic standpoint, who can blame that mentality? Like, if you're growing up in a society where you're told diversity is our strength, and you watch as your culture is destroyed, and you're told that you as a white person, specifically white males in this case, are bad people, then it creates and it fosters this feeling of resentment, of victimhood. And it's only a matter of time before that manifests in either like political outcomes or something else. And that's where things get really hairy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Something worse.
It's seeped into, I mean, both of you talked about, we grew up in this era of diversity, and anything about that diversity is fantastic. We have to celebrate diversity, and it's gotten so out of hand to the extent, and I'm sure you've both seen this in different places and in your different lines of work, but companies that I previously worked for, where if you recommended a new hire and they were hired on, you get like a little bonus. You would get more of a bonus if they were a female, even more if they were a female minority. If it's a white male, you barely got anything. It's like not worth anything to us. So you turn that around and you look at the layoffs that are happening now.
Yep.
Across corporate America, and it's not really being reported as layoffs because corporations are doing magic with the numbers, as I talked about with my guest this week, Amanda Goodall, the job chick. Go back and check that out if you missed it. But it's essentially blocking a certain segment of the population out of the workforce. Yep. And just like you were talking about, Brian, what's this going to lead to? What do we think is going to happen here? We've already seen it in the last election with Donald Trump, where it's really turning into, instead of a Democrat and Republican party, it's turning into like a male-female party, and like definitely white male all on the Republican side, because that's the only side that isn't 100% against them. Like the left had this initiative when they brought in David Hogg as the vice chair, and whoever the other skinny, gay-looking guy is as the chair of the DNC. We've got to find out how to attract males. And it's like, males don't want to be Democrats because you hate them. Like, it's not that hard.
Well, it creates, without a doubt, like you're saying, it creates, for in this country, without a doubt, you're creating an us versus them mentality of white males because of the demonization, because of the DEI practice, because of these selective processes, which are forcing men out and forcing them to either self-hate to the point you go, we're not taking it anymore. But also, like for example, the Scottish Joan of Arc, it's also creating in these foreign countries that have such an immigration issue now because of the culture clashes, an even bigger us versus them. Because in this country, and now it's happening in this country too, though, because it used to be when we were growing up, diversity, great, whatever, colorblind. And I still believe in being colorblind. Absolutely. But when it hits the point where the culture is so different, then now you have distinctly us versus them, because it's us is people that have our beliefs, our culture, our goals, our common shared goals, and a common shared history. And when you import or change those common shared goals, and when you rewrite history, as Democrats have tried to do, like as we talked about this, I'm having Bill Magnus with the 1619 Project myth on my show next week. When you try to rewrite history to demonize the white population and demonize men and demonize, and in Scotland, same thing. You import all of these people that are completely a different culture, a different moral value. That's the biggest thing. A different moral value, like men look at, creating grooming rape gangs that are factually accurate and were covered up by the government in the UK. This isn't us versus them. The only outcome to that, if it can't be solved politically, and at this point in time, it doesn't look like it can be, at least in the UK, and specifically in the UK, when is revolution happening? Like I just tweeted out a poll saying like, which one of these countries is going to have a revolution against their government first? And I put like the Britain, Scotland, and France. Those are the three options. And at this point in time, Scotland went very far left, but this is the people, kind of like the people in Washington, D.C., all the black population that are in the violent communities going, thank God for the National Guard. This is the Scottish version of that. People going, you can paint this however you want. You can spin it however you want. You can tell us that we're being bigots, but we are living in this, and this is a nightmare dealing with this. It has to change, and revolution may be coming for Europe.
And by the way, Brian, like I just want to piggyback on what you just hit on there, right? This idea that there is no bad culture, right? Like, no, I think this is where the generation, the younger generation, especially in America, and frankly, folks who are just experiencing diversity being our strength, tongue in cheek, right? Like they are very much getting more comfortable with saying, no, not all cultures are created equal. As a matter of fact, some cultures are overtly bad, right? Like there is no justifying and trying to do the mental gymnastics to say that the Aztecs slaughtering 20,000 people a year to the sun god is a good thing, that was culturally a good thing. And there's no objective good to seeing Muslims trying to literally like go after like young children in like the like 9-year-old, 6-year-old, sometimes down to 3-year-old range. That's psychotic. And the fact that we have seen so many older folks in the older generations, not just like enable this, but in many cases just outright defend it. This is also leading to this whole like Gen X, millennial versus, I'm sorry, not Gen X, like the Gen Z, millennial versus the older Gen X and boomer mentality. Because a lot of the younger folks are saying, listen, I know that, look, you know, graph go up for GDP or whatever. Like, sure, you've created a better economic system. Not really. But then you look at it from a cultural standpoint. Sorry, the world we're growing up in, or the world the Gen Z is growing up in, or Gen Alpha is growing up in, is fundamentally different than the world the boomers grew up in and the world that Gen X grew up in. And as a matter of fact, the world that the boomers and Gen X grew up in, that they adopted and then were able to make their own, has led to where we are today. And ignoring that, it creates even more of a division between not just the generations, but again, it goes back to now it's going to be a battle of the cultures. And unfortunately, that will manifest into battle of ethnicities, of races. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. It's only going to get worse. And this goes back to the fact that we had unfettered immigration across the globe for about a 10-year period. I mean, a decade of just saying, hey, you have a war-torn area. Oops, sorry we caused that. Here, send your people over to Eastern Europe, or send your people, or over into the United Kingdom. Send your people over to the United States, because they deserve the opportunity. They're refugees, right? And this weaponized empathy. I've gotten a lot of libertarians mad at me because I talk about the weaponized empathy. But the reality is that empathy only goes as far as walking in your I call it your prospects. I talk about sales, but like walking in your prospect's shoes, walking in somebody else's shoes, right? But that doesn't mean that you just like you enable and justify the walking in their shoes. Maybe they're doing bad things while they're going through a bad time of life, but that doesn't justify the bad behavior. You're understanding why it happened, but what we've seen is instead of understanding why it happened and addressing that, they see what happened. They say, "Oh, that poor person, right? We have to be able to coddle them and make their lives so much better." And it's at the expense of people who not only are taxpayers in those respective communities, but also the folks who are watching their culture get ripped away and told you're a bad person for thinking that's a bad thing.
Well, also, I think about this a lot because, like I mentioned, the whole colorblind thing growing up, I'm still all for it, but my empathy has become greatly reduced by seeing the impact of, let's say, rampant homelessness and, the policies the left has put in with immigration and just overrunning Los Angeles, for example, where I live. The homelessness overrunning Los Angeles, where I live. I used to stop and give people money. I used to think, yes, let's help this guy out. Let's help that girl out. And now I'm like, get the fuck out of my neighborhood. Like I'm over it. I'm over seeing these people destroy
I don't want to subsidize you living in a tent anymore.
Yes,
for real.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Or subsidize you, living in Section 8 housing or whatever it might be, and subsidize you using the emergency rooms and constantly having, like they looked at around here because they did a mass push to find the immigrants. Obviously the ICE situation is a big deal right now. I'll tell you what, and you can think whatever, but I'm reporting what happened from one to the other. There was an area where all the immigrants would line up right down by the Home Depot, right around the block from me. And they'd be 30 deep, and it was disgusting because there was trash everywhere. They didn't pick it up. They'd sit there all day. It was garbage-filled cesspool, and it's not anymore because they either migrated themselves or they went back to, where they're from, or ICE came in. I'm just telling you the facts. Same thing with the emergency rooms in Los Angeles. You could not go to an emergency room and not wait for 5 hours. Because it was full of immigrants that didn't have the health care. And I'm sorry, my empathy ends when I cannot get anything taken care of for myself. When I'm walking through trash all the time, my empathy ends. So, people I'm sure will have a beef with that and say, well, this is a superficial thing, but it's not. It's your way of living. It's disease. It's needing medical care. It's what my dog's eating. It's what my children are walking through. It's your property. You know, like you talk about private property and property values or property rights in libertarian society. Well, sorry, your property rights are under attack when you have unfettered, immigration, homelessness, and these people do not respect the property. They do not have the same culture. They do not have the same moral values as the community. So that should be seen as a violation of the NAP, frankly. Yeah. You are violating the non-aggression principle because you are aggressing on me constantly by violating the norms of the society and not giving a shit and endangering me in the process.
It's endorsing the degradation of society by providing the wrong incentives.
Yeah.
And then that compounding over time. Like if you look at Japan, I've never been to Japan, but everyone I know who's ever been to Japan says, "Oh my God, it's the cleanest city ever. There's not even any garbage cans anywhere."
Yep.
I just had this conversation with my sister-in-law. I was like, "Tell me why. Why do you think that is, Kaylee?"
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have the right incentives. They're not bringing in people that destroy the culture there. And it's an island, so I guess it's a little easier to do it maybe, but you can't ignore what's happening right in front of your face. And you can't ignore that every single city in the United States of America, every single large city is turning into a third world cesspool. And, do we just watch it happen, or do we start, speaking out about it and trying to change it?
And I know we have to go to the next story, but, Brian, just to put a nice, dot at the end of this sentence here, going back to what you experienced, right? The anecdotal about like emergency rooms. I just went and used Perplexity AI to pull up some fact checks here. And the data is actually insane. Right now, the best data from the LA County Board of Supervisors is said that around a 25 to 30% drop in emergency room visits from June onward. And that the only correlation there is the uptick in the ICE raids. So this right here, in the world of sales, we talk about not telling people, but showing them, right? And I think it's Tom from the Patrick Bet David podcast. He says, words talk, but numbers scream, right? Once the voters, the younger voters especially, see that, they can't unsee it, right? And that just shows the direct correlation between the narrative and then the actual outcomes. And I really feel that this is stuff that as more and more Americans start to see what we can actually accomplish, and that they don't have to live this way, right? I think this is the other part. You don't have to live this way. And by the way, you're not a bad person for not wanting to live this way.
Yeah.
And as you see that there is a tangible path to accomplishing a better outcome versus what we heard from the Biden administration, the Obama administration. I mean, you go back decades and decades. Oh, this requires an act of Congress. This requires this, and this. And then they see Trump come in and more or less address the issue in less than, 9 months? Like, is it perfect? No. But is it a tangible step in a better direction? To most folks, objectively, yes. So that leads me to wonder, what's next? And does this speak to why the Trump administration has been able to do so much and maybe push the envelope further than they normally would have? Because they are getting, even if it's not the vocal support of folks, they are getting that quiet support of folks just kind of saying, yeah, you know what? Yeah, we should have done this. We should have done something instead of just pretending it wasn't an issue. I'm okay with it. I think that we're going to see more and more of that.
Wait a minute, Brian. So you're telling me that all this time Joe Biden could have secured the border and it wasn't Donald Trump who stopped him from doing it? What?
Easy, man. Easy there. Easy there, you dog-faced pony soldier.
All right, moving on to our next topic here. You talk about, we're talking about changes in, I guess, how society lives, what's viewed as acceptable, not acceptable. So the trans movement, which is now, I think, going back, like we said, anything the pendulum swing, it's coming back the other way. But there's still a generation that was brainwashed and cajoled and affirmed into believing that they were in the wrong bodies, that transgenderism was the solution to all of their problems of depression, of feeling awkward in your body, you name it. Transgenderism was the answer. You're in the wrong body. We're now seeing, this has got to be the third, the fourth now, transgender shooter, and specifically who's gone after Catholic school children, which is perverse. Go after children at any level is perverse, but this is obviously a pattern now. And this guy, Robin Westman, I'll share my screen in a second, but again, my computer is being slow and crappy, so I don't want to wreck my feed before I do it. But Robin Westman confessed he was tired of being trans and says, I wish I never brainwashed myself. But at the same time, this is clearly somebody who is definitively mentally unstable, mentally ill, and, is attracted or was attracted to this and affirmed in it. So let me just share this guy's face because it's too soon to make this joke, but I do just want to say he looks exactly like Eric Stoltz in The Mask. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but this guy, it's going to take a minute to share my screen here.
Do you have a side-by-side?
Yeah, you know what? I was going to. Do you? Oh, do you have one?
Oh, not side by side, but I have literally the image you're talking about.
Okay, here, pull up. Actually, let me share mine first, and then I'll pull it down, and you can share the mask.
Okay, I'll get it.
God, my computer's so slow. I'm trying to figure out what is causing it. It's got to be some specific program that's just destroying my freaking.
It's the New York Post is what it is because I had to close the window.
Really? Maybe it's just too many ads, too many cookies.
So
there he is.
Yeah, there he is. So cancer.
Yeah, yeah. So this guy, he identified as trans. And like you said, this is a pure psychopath, but it does bring up the question. And I'm seeing all of these people like Brad Palumbo, who I like Brad Palumbo, respect him, gay man, but not trans. But he's saying, well, we can't just say that this is a trans problem because look, the number of trans people that are shooting people is just this minuscule. But okay, well, that might be compared to the overall population. But when you compare the ratio of trans shooters by percent to the overall population, it's like 25 times the amount that a normal population has. So clearly there's something that is going on here with this ideology and with the way in which they have been told and essentially confirmed in their feelings to be filled with hate and told to hate, religion clearly. But for these fuckers to keep going after children is just, okay. So here, go ahead, Brian, share.
It's shared. I think you have to accept it.
Oh, okay. Oh, do you click it? Because I don't want to mess my feed up.
Looks just like him.
I mean, it really does. It's an uncanny resemblance to the mask. So and he even grew his hair out to look more like him. but yeah, it's a sickness. And, as I had mentioned in my theory, this is a sickness born out of a society that is entitling these people to dive into feelings that are perverse and then writing off their feelings of depression, anxiety, psychotic thinking and being like, well, it's because you're in the wrong body, you're trans. So like, that's going to fix it. When a lot of these people just have severe mental issues and the solution that they're being told is trans. And clearly that's not working.
Yeah, and maybe they don't have severe mental issues. I think some of them are just really, they're going through adolescence. They're confused. They're trying to fit in. Becoming trans for a time was like a cool thing. Like apparently with the youths out there,
it was on par with being.
I mean the ones that are the ones I was talking about, like the violent ones though. Okay. Like because there's all these instances of people, like I said, with severe depression, autism, like all these people that'll get locked in on these certain things that they diagnose and like you're trans. And to your point, a ton of people are just confused adolescents that are unhappy and convinced to.
Well, I think this is how a lot of folks, like younger folks specifically, who they just try to find their group, right? Like I mean, think back to when we were kids. It was the weird goth kids, right? Like that's who it was. I mean, think back to Columbine. It was the two weird trench coat wearing guys, right? And that became like the narrative for 10, 15 years of that's who your school shooter is. Like they made a joke about it in Billy Madison, right? Like, oh, I'm glad I called that guy, right? But then you fast forward to today, and it's less the weirdo goth kind of culture, and it's now more of this trans culture, and it's manifested in more or less the same types of ways, and it's gotten more and more progressively worse, I would say, because of the advent of the internet. Instead, you used to be like, oh, I'm a weirdo amongst my weirdos in my school, and that's pretty much where it ends. Now I'm a weirdo amongst all of the weirdos, both in my state, in my country, in the world. So you're getting the worst of the ideas, but it's spreading at a rate that you would never have seen back when we were kids. So it's obviously manifesting in not good mental outcomes. And I think this goes to, they're mostly confused adolescents. But like when you start to add in stuff like gender identity, and you start adding in the idea that, oh, don't worry, we're going to actually validate these ideas. And as adults, give children access to try to attempt to change their own biological gender based on vibes and feelings when they're a kid. Like, no, that's insanity.
Yeah, that's what makes it 100 times worse than
it's enabled
than the goth thing, because they are, changing their actual, body, or physically doing it, or chemically through chemical castration. But with goth kids, like, I mean, I don't know if you guys had the same experience, but goth kids growing up, they never always traveled in groups. You'll never see just like one goth kid walking alone. It was always like 4 or 5 traveling in a pack of goths. But a lot of them turned out totally normal. You've talked to kids who were goths growing up, you'd have no idea.
Gaggle.
A gaggle of goths.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly, Odie. They would travel in packs. And this is the isolation that's possible with the internet as well, because kids, like the nerdy kids would have the nerdy kids growing up. You'd have your friend group, and there was an accountability. Even if you guys were outcasts, you were the outcasts together. And now with the internet, you are just isolated. The ability to go within yourself and become completely isolated with an online group is there.
And validated.
Exactly. And validated. But you had nobody that would hold you accountable that was left behind. Let's say you did something this horribly. You would in the past, because you had friends that cared about you, that you respected, and you wanted to think well of you, you would be like, I can't go shoot up a bunch of children, because all of my friends will be like, what the fuck, Jim? Like, what? That check is important in your brain. It matters to have that legacy. And these people are always loners that are isolated on the internet, that have found their internet culture, that have nobody in real life to be a check or a balance on them, or hold them accountable, or be disappointed in them, other than their parents, who were probably, his parents who signed off on giving this psychopath the mind-altering drugs to, and allow him to change his identity to a female. It matters.
John, can you share the screen I put up here, because this literally piggybacks on what you're saying there, Brian, right? And then you top it all off. And so the Daily Wire just released this hidden, or this exposed footage from the American Medical Association, which more or less is a quasi-governmental entity where if you want to be a doctor in America, you have to be part of the AMA. And they're going out on this web call that they had, where they're basically saying, no. Not only is there no issues with transitioning children, but they're saying it's entirely reversible, right? Like this is insanity. Yeah, they're talking about puberty blockers being reversible, and they're citing these radical trans activists. And when you have the experts, and this is literally what we saw in COVID, right? When you have the expert class who you're constantly deferring to for these medical decisions, and it gives parents both the comfort, but also kind of the push to affirm what their kids are saying, because number one, well, I'm having all these medical people who they go to school and they look at this stuff, right? Like they're telling me this is okay. And they're telling me the alternative is that my kid's going to kill themselves. So what's the better option?
Yep.
Yeah. What's the better option? Do I give my kids what I'm being told by the experts is reversible puberty blockers or transitional care when they're kids, or do I have a dead kid? Right. Mm-hmm. And what a fucked up mentality to present to parents, when literally we're all parents here. The only thing that we care about is to keep our kids safe. Like how much is there at the feet of the American Medical Association to say a lot of this, and your so-called experts, this is kind of on you guys too, for both presenting this as this is the necessary option, but more or less brainwashing parents based on your expertise that this is okay. Like, at what point do we start to say, hey, this isn't just the parents, this isn't just the kids, this is the medical institutions that are supposed to keep our kids, healthy and safe, and say they're going to do no harm, they're actually causing most of the harm.
Yeah, I put almost all of the blame on these experts, coupled with the system that these parents grew up in, the public schools where they were not taught how to critically think.
Yep.
And yes, of course,
Be a
the
good
parents,
little test taker.
Of course, the parents share blame in this, but I mean, they to an extent are a victim of it as well. And it's kind of. I guess it's easier for me to think of it that way because I know people, personally in my life who, their parents and, they have a trans kid, and you kind of like walk through like, how did this happen? I know these people are, smart, caring people. How did they get led down this path? And it's just extremely unfortunate. But to come back to this shooter, so I double checked it, and the shooter's mother worked at this school for at least 5 years, not as a teacher, but as an administrative aide of some kind. So clearly, like this trans, how old was the shooter? Early 20s?
I closed my window, but yeah, I mean, an adult age, I believe.
So young adult, obviously acting out against his mother, against the religion, that is the faith that his mother had, which kind of brings into question, probably there was friction around, this guy, this trans person getting the drugs, the puberty blockers, whatever. So I mean, that's a clear motive. You see, like yesterday, the chief of police comes out and says, we don't know what the motive is here. Yeah. We have no idea. I kind of understand that for legal reasons. You can't really say anything at the beginning, but still, clearly there's a motive to find there. But the last thing I do want to say about this, Brian McWilliams, you were there for this. We were up at Pork Fest, and RFK Jr. talked about school shooters, and this when he was running for president, and he said, all the data on these school shooters is there. It's in the FDA, it's not associated with names. It's anonymous. We can, run analysis on all of it and all the drugs they're taking and figure out, are some of these drugs leading, to this violent behavior? Haven't heard anything about that yet. Hopefully he's working on it, but that's definitely something. As soon as I see a school shooting, the first thing I think is, what drugs was this kid on?
Yeah, it's the serotonin response inhibitors are a clear link. You hear it all the time after the fact. Nobody brings it up the forefront. Yeah, absolutely. And it's also, you think about, what do you blame the medical associations for? The medical industrial complex. And I 100% blame them for what's going on. I mean, they were captured by the trans industry and the fear tactics used in canceling. So they all went along with it. All the doctors went along with it, even though the evidence was suspect, and now it's been debunked, most of the evidence in the Cass files and the Cass investigation in the UK. And they went along with it because they were afraid of getting canceled. And again, most of these doctors are hyper liberal, just as a fact. So they went along with it because they're in academia and then into medical associations. So they then felt, well, okay, we're doing the right thing. We're on the right side of history. So we're going to push it, even though it's not evidentially backed, even though there's no checks and balances on any of this, even though it's brand new medicine. They'll tell you it's been around and it's proven it's not. We're seeing the outcomes right now. They forced this on parents. The government backed it. Like, this is top down. The government said, we are backing affirmative care. So that now is the weight of government behind it. So I looked at government and the medical institutions for blaming the trans thing, but also to a larger extent, all of these instances of the over medicalization of children is also, you look at the top down cronyism in the government, you look at the incentives that exist between big pharma and big government, you look at the medical associations and the blame that they would take for pushing medicalization of children. And then you also look to the parents and you go, okay, you took the easy way out. And I don't know if this is passed down from the boomers because they had it so easy. And, you have this revolution coming in of technology in different ways and services to raise your kids. And now you get into the television generation and now the iPad generation, where it's so easy for parents not to pay attention to their fucking kids, not to actually know what's going on in their kids' lives, and just to go, all right, we can solve this with a pill. Let's solve it with a pill, instead of actually talking and managing the situation in a hands-on manner and figuring out what's going on with your kid. And maybe it's not a pill that can solve it. Maybe it's that he's isolated, like we're talking about. Maybe your kid resents the shit out of you as a parent, and you're so oblivious to it or so lazy to fix that relationship that now kids get shot up. I mean, there's a lot of elements that go into it, but without a doubt, the government is at the top of the food chain in a lot of this. And I think the technological revolution obviously plays a huge role in it as well. And those two things are a perfect combination to end up in this society where this is happening on a regular basis.
Well, and you look at the importance of stigma. I know lots of folks in the liberty movement, they hate the idea of judging people or stigmatizing certain types of behaviors. No, sorry. That is the role. That is why these things need to exist. Because what's the alternative, right? If it's not for social stigma, it turns into government policy. Right. Mm-hmm. So we as a society have gotten so uncomfortable with making people uncomfortable. Right. We've embraced this go along to get along mentality, the live and let live. This idea is so destructive to social order, because then it just turns into a free for all. It turns into this back and forth of, well, how is this impacting you? Why do you care so much? Well, because there's reality, right? And I feel that, as we've seen and it goes back to the internet, right? As the internet became more and more prevalent, it became less of, I'm going to get, maybe one or two people in my community pissed off. Now it's like, I'm going to get 1,000 or 2,000 people pissed off because I say something that, and it turns into a story, right? This whole, I forget the lady's name, but this goes back to the first ever the cancel of this one lady made a joke about going over to Africa. She was flying in an airplane and she had made some off-color joke on Twitter where it was something about not worrying about getting robbed.
Getting HIV. No, it's about getting HIV. I remember this story. Yeah.
She goes into the plane. She gets in the plane. There was no internet at the time in the plane. And by the time she lands, she opens her phone back up. And it was hundreds of notifications, messages, emails. She had gotten fired. All this shit had happened when she was 30,000 feet in the air. Right.
Yeah, and over a dumb joke.
Over a stupid joke, right? But then that mentality that goes into the cancel culture we saw over the 10 years there from 2014 to 2024, where you would possibly lose your job over a bad joke. You didn't hold the right position. Oh, you're going to be socially ostracized. And parents, by and large, and again, I'm going to point the blame at the folks who kind of grew up with this technology. It's going to be the younger Gen X and the older millennials, right? It's those folks who not only were using these technologies, but for some reason, don't like disrupting the apple cart, right? They just want things to be nice. They want things to be not confrontational. And I it kind of goes hand in hand with the feminization of our society, where men traditionally were the ones who would say, hey, I'm going to say the unpopular truth because it needs to be said. And that has been sacrificed with this more of, we have to understand, this poor person, you don't make those hurtful remarks, right? And this very feminine type of energy. And what's ended up happening is it's manifesting right now with, again, back to the reaction side, the younger generation saying, absolutely not. And as a matter of fact, instead of using the internet to actually make people believe what I'm going to believe, I'm going to use the internet to say what I actually do believe and use that as a means to reach other folks who are sitting silently, just kind of going along to get along again. So I think it all kind of comes together, right? Of the feminization of our society, the technology that has made us so we're involved with everybody in our planet, really. This is why folks are so concentrated on what's happening over in Gaza right now. Yes, it's horrible, but the only reason it's so much focused on right now in American politics is because we can open our smartphones and see a video from the Gaza Strip from last night today, right? Versus it used to be, maybe you'd see a clip on the 6 o'clock news. Maybe there'd be a 60 minutes coverage over it. Maybe CNN would pick it up. Now it's CNN's covering it at the 6 p.m. news hour. Yeah, I saw it on my phone 15 hours ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a downside to that. There's a downside to having access to every horrible thing that happens in the world, because the human psyche is not built to be able to deal with that, that amount of information, that amount of violence. I mean, and some people more so than others, but I think it really does tweak a lot of people out.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, we're talking about the feminization of culture. Last story of the day here.
I lobbed up that softball for you. Just knock out of the park, Brian.
Yeah, perfect. Well, yeah, Disney, they fucked around and they found out what happens when you, as we mentioned, attack and vilify and try to eliminate from film white men. And frankly, maybe not just all white men, but the majority. Because Disney's gone out of their way to remove all of the white male heroes, to put them, subservient to their emotions, subservient to the women in their lives, subservient to the patriarchy and their involvement in it, and tell them they're pieces of shit. You'll remember this with, of course, Mark Hamill and Luke Skywalker. You'll remember with Indiana Jones. You name a male character, Willow is another one. All of Disney's primary male characters have been eviscerated. And as such, and of course, replaced with female leads in all of these different shows. As such, shockingly, they have no more Gen Z male viewers. Disney's films flop, other than the fanboys. You can look to Fantastic Four, of course, which includes very feminine male lead Pedro Pascal.
Ugh.
Yeah, sick of him. That flopped. The last Thunderbolts movie flopped. The one before that flopped. The last Star Wars flopped. It's flop after flop after flop. And most of these are female-led films that, again, have very weak male characters that are not in the lead roles. So now, because of this, they've actually identified the problem after 10 years of vilifying men, and they're now looking to win back Gen Z men amid Marvel and Lucasfilm's struggles. And they're saying that specifically they're looking for men ages 13 to 28, young men, and they're looking for not just to, redefine and rewrite what they're making, which, by the way, they just went into production on a new Starfighter film starring Ryan Gosling, but I saw Amy Adams sign on to it, so I'm sure Amy Adams will become the finest starfighter in the galaxy. But they also looking for original IP, because what they've got has been so poisoned by what they've done that people have completely checked out. Again, look to Marvel, look to Star Wars. So What do you guys make of this? Is Hollywood finally going to get its head out of its ass? Is this the canary in the coal mine for them?
Well, dude, you hit on it, right? They had this amazing IP called Star Wars that prior to 2015, the data was 70 to 90% of Star Wars fans were male. You had it. All you had to do was not fuck it up, right? And what did they do? They fucked it up. Thank you,
The
Kathleen
Force
Kennedy.
is female. The Force is female. That alone. Okay, fine. I'm not watching anymore.
And what happens, right? Yeah, all the male viewers are like, well, and this goes again. There's a reoccurring theme. Okay, I'm the bad guy, right? Because I enjoyed Star Wars and it had some like male-centric themes, like, the hero's journey. I can see myself in Luke Skywalker, like, it's the little farmer boy who finds out that he's going to go fight the big bad empire. Like, he's going to, lead this ragtag group of folks who can make a difference. And then they just fucked it. They said, no, we can't do that, right? Like, I go back to that one video, and it was like, or not video, it was a meme, and it was, if you could go back in time and change one thing, and it's like girls like going back, like, I'm talking to my grandmother, right? Like, tell me about your childhood. And then it's for all the boys. It's them looking at George Lucas signing away Star Wars at Disney, saying like, no, put the pen down. But like, that's what's happened, right? Even the prequels, which prequels get shit on. I think they actually look pretty good, fast forward 20 years. But like, they still had those underlying male themes. The story of Anakin Skywalker going from a young boy and having the hots for Padme. Little creepy when you kind of look at it from episode 1, but I digress. Going through being the hero, but maybe a little bit of a bad boy in episode 2, and then episode 3, the conflict within, right? Like, these are all things that are themes that men tend to like, we go through in life, right? And there was something very like relatable. And the fact that they took that and in 2015 released The Force Awakens as more or less a big middle finger, not just to that underlying male ethos, but then they also said, by the way, the heroes that you used to like, they're pieces of shit. Han Solo, he abandons his wife and Princess Leia and his kid Ben Solo to go be a smuggler again with Chewbacca. Luke Skywalker's a big bitch and he's going living out on this fucking island by himself, because he fucked up leading the new Jedi temple.
Brian, I haven't seen these movies. You're ruining them for me.
Yeah, no. Odie never sees anything.
We've only been out for a decade, man.
Odie's like an Iranian teen.
I saw the original 3 Star Wars when I was a kid, and I was like, you know what? That's enough. That was good. I like that. I don't need anything else.
Well, you're not missing anything, man.
Now, see, I must be the like surrogate Cowboys. I am surrogate Cowboys fan. The Star Wars fan too, because like I grew up, my mom had found the old Star Wars VHS release at a garage sale, and I was like 4, and that game over, right? Like I was Star Wars every day.
Me too, man. I was a massive Star Wars fan. I would get chills when they came out with the Phantom Menace. I remember getting physical chills. I was like, oh my god,
Darth Maul, the double-sided lightsaber.
Out of my mind. And then to watch them completely destroy and denigrate the entire series with these terrible female lead characters, like you said, betraying what the original characters were. And you talk about like the hero's journey and the trials and tribulations, like. So many of these girl boss characters, number one, they're all the exact same fucking stupid character.
All of them. Rey,
they're all obnoxious.
Jennifer Lawrence from the Hunger Games. What was that other one with the Aaron Rodgers' ex-girlfriend? Not Deliverance. Is it Deliverance? No.
Aaron Rodgers' ex-girlfriend.
I know what you're talking about.
Woodley. Shalane.
They're like, she's like super autistic.
It's like a Hunger Games knockoff.
Divergent.
There we go.
Yeah, but it's like every single movie they make, it's the exact same shitty girl boss character. They don't go through anything. They're expected. They don't go through a journey. They don't go through. They're just automatically better than everybody else. Yeah, and they all have the exact same attitude.
They were just born that way. They were born with that girl power.
And they all make the same stupid speeches about men. It's just like, it's everything about it. As a man, you're watching it and going, well, you're just, fuck me, fuck you. I'm not coming back to this crap. And women don't like it either, though. That's the thing. That's where these people fucked up. Women also want strong men in their movies. That's what's attractive. That's what's interesting. That's what's fun. You can still have strong female characters. Like Game of Thrones, while it was off the George R.R. Martin books, had fantastic, strong female characters alongside the men. And they didn't have to stop and give speeches about how they were strong female characters like they did when the Hollywood writers took over in the final 2 series. You can have it both ways. But when you get one and say, you're now the bad guys, we're not allowing you to have a main role in this, and you put forward the females in every single lead, you're going to lose your audience. And that's what's happened. The women didn't follow because women want strong men and strong male leads, and they liked men, the humor of men, the leadership of men, the attractiveness of a strong, manly man is what most women want. You're going to have a subsect of pink-haired, purple-haired dumb fucks that are going to go, yeah, fight the patriarchy, fifth-wave feminism, but that's 10% of the population. That's not paying the box office bills.
I don't think it started here, but I think we can definitely see a like progression. But you go back to the sitcom personification of the dad, right? Mm-hmm. Just kind of became this goofball that was there in the house. Mom ran the house, right? Dad was just kind of there. He was there for some comedic relief.
Homer Simpson.
But by and large, I mean, think of like, Everybody Loves Raymond, Home Improvement, The King of Queens. I mean, just go through the list. Yeah. All the male characters were the comedic relief, the buffoon, and this mentality. It started to. It's like a testing ground. They're like, oh shit, yeah, we can do this. All right, let's move this upstream. Let's bring this into the theaters, right? And what it ended up doing, to your point, Bri, is that not only did it push men away, it pushed women away, because women thought they wanted, and I know this is like opening up a whole other conversation of what women actually think they want versus what they actually do want. Women thought they wanted this. They thought they wanted the girl boss. They thought they wanted the pussy man on the back, the backside of the conversation in the story, like who's
that's
just kind of
when they were on birth control. That's what they thought they wanted. Then when they went off and the hormones changed, then
they got Taylor Swift. They were like, oh, I should get engaged to a big burly man and like a Travis Kelce football player. What? Not the soy boy. Yeah, not the what was his name? Timothy Chalamet. I know she didn't date him, but like you're seeing right now this resurgence in a desire for masculine men. And we talked about this earlier with David Hogg, right? When you go from this stick figure of a beta male in the truest like personification of that relative to like the Kelsey brothers, right? Like you got one who was an offensive lineman for the Eagles, the other plays tight end for the Chiefs, right? They're these big burly men. Like there is right now this resurgence to women just being like, yep, you know what? Kind of want that. I don't want the guy who I'm bigger than.
Well, and you're also seeing, to talk about our earlier conversation about the mass migration and cultural shifts and like go along to get along. Weak men make hard times.
Yep.
That is an absolutely true phrase. And I've seen so many women just go, God, can I get a strong man, like on the subway when there's a psychopath jerking off, on my kneecap? Can a strong man come up and help me, please? Can somebody stop? Like, you need strong men.
Then that strong man punches that guy in the face, and they put him in prison.
And then the strong man gets arrested. Yeah, that's the inversion and perversion of our society. I think that's swinging back as well. Again, in the UK, I've seen it. There was some psycho black dude fully nude on the tube, as they say, just sitting there going like jerking off, and guys go up and like get the fuck out of here. He's like yelling at me, shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up. The black guy's yelling, and they just beat the shit out of him, dragged him off the train. Good. Thank you for being men. Thank you for standing up for the morals of your society and for civil society. That's what men do. And the women, you can be a strong woman, but look, when a guy twice your size who's fucking crazy is on the train yelling, guess what? Patriarchy goes out the window pretty fast, ladies.
But Brian, let me play devil's advocate though.
Take care of that.
Because remember that story of, I think it was in New York City. You had this boyfriend, girlfriend. They were coming back from like a night out of dinner, and there's fucking crazy guy in the street. Guy like starts trying to get a little rough with them. Fucking stabs the guy. The lady was like, well, even though my boyfriend dies, she's trying to justify that this poor guy, right? This weaponized empathy. There are folks, females specifically in some of these bigger blue cities who they not only will try to excuse away this stuff, they will go out of their way to to validate the concerns, the poor childhood, whatever it may be, to enable this shit.
Remember the dad, talk about a bitch beta male, the dad of the white kid who got stabbed at the
Austin,
the track meeting.
Austin Metcalf,
Yeah, he went to the funeral and apologized. Like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you?
Insane behavior.
Mentally,
I can't even imagine. If something like that happened to me, to have a child killed, and then to be acting that way in front of the media, it doesn't make any sense. Like, you have to have a screw loose to do that. There's
compare and contrast. I had on my show a couple of years ago, Jody Plauché, whose dad was Gary Plauché, which from the very famous video of where the guy's being walked through the airport and the guy's at the payphone and he turns around and blows his brains out. Right?
Exactly what
compare and contrast that. Right? Like, that's a dad, and like that's missing in society. And I think it goes back to all the things we talked about, the social stigma, the fear of, it's society's going to put me away for doing the right thing. I think we're in a reversion to the mean, but I digress.
I think we've solved everything. I'm pretty sure.
There we go. Just listen to politics. We solved the world's problems. That's great.
We did it in just under an hour.
Because we're the Politicks of the politics.
Politicks. That's right. All right. Well, thank you guys. We'll sign off on that. I'm Brian McWilliams. That's Joan Odermatt. And of course, Brian Nichols. Lou Perez is not here tonight, but you can hear his beautiful voice on the way out. So guys, remember, subscribe. You can subscribe to this show and all of our shows. We have 4 shows on the Lions of Liberty Network plus Politicks every other week. join that Lions of Liberty Network feed on YouTube, Rumble, podcast, wherever you are. And if you just like politics, you can just subscribe to Politics. Also, we do have a Patreon with bonus content, patreon.com/Lions of Liberty for daily rants. We're going to have our sports gambling talk show. We also have our bonus content coming up with Meme Wars, and we need to do another Secrets, Lies, and Cover-Up show where we talk conspiracies. All that and more, patreon.com/Lions of Liberty or lionsofliberty.locals.com. All right. Final words, anybody? Nobody's taking
Don't be a poliprick.
See ya.
Oh, yeah.
Politics, more like politricks with your polipricks.
Oh, yeah.
Politics with your polipricks. Throw your hands up. Oh yeah! Who this? Politics with your polipricks.